Well, it's a great song, that. It's by Elder Island, and it's called Motive. Now, can I just say that if I am a little bit shouty this morning, it's because I've got my headphones over my woolly hat. And the reasoning behind this is because we've got the heating on, but here in the studio, it takes a while to warm up. So for the last hour or so, I've had the hat on, but now you're going to see it because we're recording. We've got none other than our very own. Let's bring on his theme tune, first of all. Chris Sinkingson from Moorlands College. Good morning, Chris.
Morning, Gareth. Yeah, I don't need a hat. It's nice and warm here at Moorlands College. We've got good heaters.
Well, that's because gradually the wood behind you has been peeled off and you're now burning it, I think.
That's right. I've got a wood burner the other side of me, and we're working our way across. We're hoping by about March we should have burned up all the wood there.
March? Blimey, in our house, that would probably last us till Thursday. Which, funnily enough, Chris, I mean, you're a man of the environment. I don't quite know what that means, but basically, you do a lot of work outside when you're digging. Do you appreciate, because I've only just realised this, that depending on the logs that you've got, and if it's hardwood or softwood, depends on how long they'll last.
Yeah, and yeah, you've got to let them dry out properly as well, haven't you? They need to be good and dry. And yeah, that's right. How long they last, how much they spark as well. You know, all the if you get the wrong kind of wood, you've got a fireworks display in your front room.
It is amazing stuff. So apparently there'll be some tree surgeons on who can correct me on this, but I think hardwood burns longer, but doesn't burn as warm as softwood does. So you've got a choice, basically. You can go through more wood and you're burning soft and you'll be warmer quicker, but it won't last as long.
Yeah, I've no idea on that one. I know the smell stuff, isn't it? Apple tree can smell different than other woods.
And there's certain trees that you can't burn. I think fern is up there because all the sap in it actually lines your chimney and it will cause you problems. Anyway, next week we'll be doing another edition of Log Corner with Gareth and Chris, where you can send in your logging questions and we'll have a go at them.
I do love logs. I love the open fire. That's lovely.
So, but is yours a proper open one or is it a log burner?
No, it's just an open fire. Yeah.
I always imagine, so I know we're going completely off topic here. In fact, let me stop this music a minute and we will start it up again when we start talking about the purpose of this feature. But now you've said that, I don't know anybody who's got a proper open fire, but now I do. Do you not find that the smoke comes into the room?
No. It goes up a chimney. We've got a chimney as well.
Yeah.
It's a fire in the middle of the room.
So, explain to me why it is then that when I open the door on my wood burner, I'm basically greeted with a load of smoke in my face and it smells the whole house out, but yours hasn't got a front on it and it doesn't smell at all.
No, the smoke goes up the chimney. I mean, it sort of draws out the chimney. I don't know what else to
surely,
say.
I have, yeah, but I also have a chimney. I have a chimney as well, okay? But why is it when I open the door, is it some sort of backdraft thing which is causing the smoke to come into the house? You know this. You're a doctor of, well, theology, but clearly on your theology course somewhere, they would have talked about things like this.
You know, we need to have a chimney sweep on, all right? We need to have a chimney sweep on the Tuesday morning breakfast show, and I'd love to hear the answers to this. But for me, I like the fire and the smoke goes up the chimney.
Mine doesn't. Chimney sweep. In fact, I've had one on already. There'll be the people who listen to us all the time. They'll know that when we first got our wood burner, we had this man on who goes by the nickname of Mr. Pomfrey. And he's been a chimney sweep for like 38 years. And it was really interesting because whilst he was cleaning ours, I had my phone and I was recording him and asking him questions. But I didn't ask him that. We need to get him on again. Why is it that in my house it beats the laws of physics and the smoke comes out to the side rather than goes up the chimney? Anyway, let's forget that bit because Chris is here to talk about artifacts.
I am.
With his feature, Digging in the Dirt, which we look forward to every week. And in fact, when I was talking to a load of businessmen over the weekend and I was trying to tell them how brilliant this radio station is and how it's serving its purpose, you were one of the main people I talked about, Chris.
Well, thank you so much, Gareth. And I often talk about you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, he always says, now, students, I've got a friend called Gareth who reckons that smoke comes out of his chimney sideways rather than upwards. What do you make of that? But genuinely, they asked me the question, what's Christian about the radio station? And I said, well, every day of the week we have different people on. And in fact, Chris brings the evidence, the actual physical evidence of the stories in the Bible. And they were well impressed. So if you are listening right now, that investment that I asked for, can we have a thumbs up, please? Thank you. So, Chris, this is the bit that I don't really look forward to because it's a real challenge for me. But what are we doing this week? Have you got the artifact that I need to describe?
Yes. Yes, I have. It's a replica, but it's an exact copy. So you got the right size, shape, thickness, and so on. 1979, archaeologist Gabriel Barkay was cleaning up a tomb from the ancient world, Old Testament period tomb, over 2,500-year-old tomb. And in cleaning it up, because it had been looted a long time ago by the people who do loot tombs, and they thought it was empty, but they discovered these things. So I've told you where they came from. There are two of them. I've stuck them on a card for those who are watching later on online. And so I've stuck them on a card, but there you go, life size. So that's the thickness of them, the size of them. And any thoughts what these might be? By the way, they are an incredible discovery. I mean, this was the find of Gabriel Barkay's lifetime. It was actually a 13-year-old assistant who actually found them in the tomb. Wow. He was the director of it. Now, this is very significant, on display in the British Museum. Sorry, in the Israel Museum, not the British Museum. On display.
Don't get those mixed up, Chris.
Now, Gareth, do you want to describe them and tell me what you think they are?
I'm just going to refer to the one at the bottom, first of all. So it looks to me, now, this could completely be those sort of things where psychologists hold up ink drops and go, what can you see here, Mr. Cottrell? But I see, when you had it turned landscape-wise, Chris, at the bottom there, it looked like, to me, the one to the right looks like a tiger, which is crouching down and he's pushing his head against something and its paw is going underneath. That's probably just me and my mind. But it looks like if you were to get a rolling pin on a piece of aluminium and start rolling it out, and if it cracked a little bit, that's what it looks like. Now, there seems to be some sort of text on there. So there's clearly some sort of language. There's some sort of markings there. And it's about the size of, from my end, it's about 30 centimeters, Chris. Maybe something like, yeah.
That's not bad description at all. And I mean, to be honest with you, I would really like to be a psychologist. I would love to be a psychiatrist, but that's another breakfast show, right? We do some great experiments. But no, that's not a bad description. It does look a little bit like a crouching lion. I can see that, but it's not. It's very old, this. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. Very old, and it's fragmented, so the shape has kind of changed over time. But you spotted the fact there's some writing on this, and that's going to be really, really important for why this is so valuable, so significant.
Now, if by any chance from my description you can work out what that could be, first of all, congratulations. We're very, very impressed. But secondly, send it through to our WhatsApp because it's completely free to get in touch. It won't cost you anything. Maybe you can send a voice note over, actually, describing what you think it is, or you can send a text. Maybe you've visited this at the museum and you're thinking, I've seen this before. Well, send the photo over. The number is 0161 511 9555. 0161 511 9555. And we'll be back with Chris after this. So, as predicted, not many people, off what I said, have managed to get it right. Well, which is fine. That's all right. Your best mate, Andy Godfrey's been in touch, Chris. And Andy says, hi, Gareth and Chris. Is Chris holding up something that looks like a tiger? Is that a clue in any way? No, it's not. It was just my portrayal of these marks that we can see. So that's basically it. That's the closest thing that we've had. A few other people getting in touch to suggest things, but they're absolutely way off the mark. And it's probably because of my pitiful description that I did. So, Chris, let's just go through this again. It's maybe about 20 to 25 centimeters long. One of them is at the top. The other one underneath it is a little bit shorter. It's probably about the thickness of maybe a leather belt, is what I'm thinking. And it's got text on it. It looks like it's silver or it's some sort of metal. And it's maybe got language. It's certainly got some numbers on it that we can see. So over to you, Chris. What we're dealing with this morning.
That's 1970 when these were found. They were rolled up. They're scrolls, and they were rolled up, tiny silver scrolls, found actually by a 13-year-old boy who was helping the archaeologists clean this up for photography, this tomb. And he found the looters, and over thousands of years, visitors to this tomb, people who'd wandered in and out, they'd never noticed some debris that had been left behind. And it included these tiny silver scrolls. We're talking about the size of a cigarette butt when they're rolled up. It would have been like a cigarette butt, silver though, there in the debris, in the ground of this tomb. Now, it took 3 years to unroll the scroll because they are ancient. They're at least 2,600 years old, 2,600 years old. They can't be exact about the date, but that's the least, that's the youngest they might be a little bit older. And that's because of the kind of writing. You're absolutely right. There's writing on here, the type of scroll and where it was found. So it's very, very ancient. Now, there's writing on them. These are silver scrolls that had text on them, written documents here. One of them was found to be the text of Deuteronomy chapter 7. That's in the Bible, in the Old Testament. The other one was found to be the text of Numbers chapter 6, again in the Old Testament. Why are those passages important? Deuteronomy, that's to do with this great "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God." It's this beautiful confession of faith. Jewish people still to this day will recite that passage every day of their lives. It's called the Shema for the Jewish people. The "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God." And that's a section from Deuteronomy 7 of this great, beautiful confession of faith. And Numbers chapter 6 is similar. It's called the priestly blessing. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. So you've got extracts from the Bible of two of the great confessions of faith of the Jewish people that are still recited day after day, Sabbath after Sabbath. And we'll know them in churches up and down the land, around the world as well. Now that means, Gareth, that what was found here, like I said, it took a few years to unroll them and read them. They had to use an electron scanning microscope to pick out some of the details of the text because it had faded over time. But on these beautiful tiny scrolls were quotations from the Bible, and they are the oldest scripture references we've actually found, the physical copies of, much older than the Dead Sea Scrolls that we talked about before, much, much older. And these are on silver, which is why they've been preserved. You know, most scrolls are written on leather, they're written on cowhide, they're written on organic material, which crumbles and fades. Silver managed to save it. And so these scrolls are pride of place in the Israel Museum because they give you the earliest glimpse of the Bible as it was written way back in the time of the first temple, way back in ancient Old Testament times. So they're a fabulous find. Amazing to be able to see these and read them. And it's a very early style of the Hebrew writing, but it is Hebrew. And it's biblical texts that are being quoted here. And it helps us to be confirmed in believing the Bible that we read today has been faithfully handed down over the centuries, right on back, not just the time of Jesus, but way on back into Old Testament times. So they're called, by the way, just to give you the name, they're called the Ketef Hinnom silver amulets. Ketef Hinnom is the name of the tomb just outside Jerusalem, and they are silver amulets. So they're not crouching lions, but that was a nice description of what they look like.
Can I ask, Chris, so how does this compare? The evidence that you've got there, how does this compare to other religions? So, for example, if you look at Islam, what sort of evidence? Now, I know you could probably talk for ages about this because you'll be really educated on these kind of topics, but how close are the texts that, say, we found in Islam compared to the Bible? Is there a huge gap between them?
It's apples and pears, in terms of doing any comparison. Remember, the Quran comes from the 6th and 7th century. So it's much, much later than the Old Testament or even the New Testament, much, much later. And by that time, of course, once you get to the time of Muhammad and you get to that period of the growth of Islam, you're really talking about a time when actually they're no longer relying on the scrolls. There's papyrus being used. There's what will eventually become paper. Paper will be used in the Middle Ages. And that's much easier to copy and transmit and around the desert regions and so on. So in fact, with the Quran, there are actually variant versions of the Quran. We know about some of the history of this. Those who are from a Muslim background will know about something called the Uthmanic recension, which is an attempt to get rid of variant versions of the Quran, to destroy them during the time of the Uthmans, and then have one version of the Quran after that. So after this what's called the Uthmanic recension, you got one version of the Quran that's supposed to be copied and copied. But that's much later in history. We're going back long before 7th century. We're going back here for the New Testament, the 1st century, so 700 years earlier. For the Old Testament, like this, we're going back way back further in time. And the start of writing, the development of the alphabet is all coming from this period. They're only just developing an alphabet that they can use to write these words down. So it's not really very easy to make any comparison with a later religion like Islam.
And would the people who found this, would they have been looking for that precisely, or was it a case of they were just digging? They knew that there'd be potentially something there, but they didn't know that this would be there.
Total accident. Some of the best finds in archaeology have been a complete accident. They thought this was empty. And the reason why the archaeologists had a 13-year-old find it is because they had a school group doing like an activity of helping the archaeologists clean up the tomb from modern debris, because, people go and hang around in these places and drop empty cans or whatever. So they were just cleaning it up. And it was somebody cleaning it up, a child cleaning it up, who discovered they'd missed something really important. What it was is the ceiling of the tomb actually had fallen down 2,600 years ago, and they hadn't realized that the floor they were walking on was actually a fallen ceiling. And therefore, if you start to push it all back, there was stuff underneath, including these tiny rolled up silver scrolls.
But presumably, there would have been people on site who when the child found this, they went, oh, right. Because I'm just thinking of if it was me, or if it was, us lot who have got no education at all on this kind of thing. If I saw that, I would probably think, oh, that's interesting. And then I might keep it for myself or just chuck it and go, oh, right, okay, next.
The kid who found this, of course, there were archaeologists there. And he hoiked it up and carried it out and showed it to the lead archaeologist, who said, no, you've got to leave it in place. You're not supposed to pick it up. Because anything like that's not supposed to be moved. You've got to be very, very careful. This could have crumbled just in lifting it out. So it was quite an accident, and it was a bit of a miracle that it was preserved. Because, tell you what, Gareth, if you do one of these digs, you'll be given a little bit of training first. And it'll tell you, don't stick it in your pocket and don't chuck it away.
Genuinely, Chris, there are a few things which have now appeared on my bucket list since I've known you. One is I want to go to Egypt with you. I want you to talk me all around, these tombs and all that kind of stuff. I want to go to the Holy Land with you. And I want to also go on one of your digs somewhere in the UK. And I've got this image of it being a really warm summer's day somewhere down south. I can put on my official scouting shorts, which are those ones which are made of that real hard canvas stuff. I can have my Indiana Jones hat on, and I can pretend that I actually know what I'm talking about.
I reckon we could create a movie out of this, Gareth. I think there's a movie in this.
I honestly think that it would either go really well or it would be complete car crash filming. But I would love just to sort of accompany you. So you're the educated one, and I'm sort of asking the questions of the everyday person. Such as like, I've asked you this before. When you're going into these tombs, what does it smell like? What's the aroma? Do you smell sort of like, does it smell old? Because my grandma's cellar always used to smell old. But surely, if we're talking about something that's 4,000 years old, what does it smell like? All this kind of stuff. It's really interesting. The other thing as well is that Tutankhamun's tomb, I saw this incredible documentary about it, and it was with Dan Snow, and he actually had the makeup palette of Tutankhamun. And I started thinking, would there be DNA on there? Could we take the DNA and bring him back to life? All of these random questions going round in my head. Maybe I should go and see that doctor after all.
Yeah. That's what we conclude from this. No, not at all. I think they're great questions. This is what we should do. And by the way, with your listeners as well, just any question you want to bung in there, Gareth or weave it in, I'm sure. And it's great to ask questions because sometimes it's the obvious kind of thing that's on your mind right now that loads of people are thinking about and nobody really talks about. The trouble sometimes with scholars is they get so detailed about something they're talking about, they forget some of those big picture questions that are maybe on your mind. So Gareth, I reckon anybody wants to throw in any questions on the message or WhatsApp group, we can weave those into this show.
I'd love that. And do you know where else? Do you know there's no other radio station that has got an expert like Chris on here who can answer these difficult questions? And we are so blessed to have him here. He's from Moorlands College, if you don't know. And this is the kind of education that you will get there. Imagine, in fact, how many lecturers roughly are there at Moorlands, Chris?
Well, full time, there's got to be about 7 or 8 of us.
So there you go. Imagine Chris cloned 7 or 8 times, answering those difficult questions on all different topics. So presumably at Moorlands, there'll be lecturers as well who specialise in different topics to you.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got specialists in youth work and digital media like Andy Defer, Helen Miller, who specialises in the church, the nature of the church and the New Testament and the book of Revelation. Fantastic kind of specialist areas that people have got. And that means, honestly, Gareth, you get them going on any of these topics and they've got so much insight to share, and the people they've met, the things they've done, and the ministry experience as well. So yeah, it's a great team.
So I want you to head over to their website right now, and they've got an open day coming up. You can book yourself on there. You can view the prospectus. You can apply. You can actually get in touch with them, and maybe you've got questions about, how much it would cost to study there, if you do part-time courses, if you do it remotely. It's moorlands.ac.uk. Chris, always a pleasure. Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you next week.
Thanks, Gareth. Bye now. Bye.